When I had that Elon interview, my DMs were some weird messages. I'm not going to put the blame entirely on Elon, but people have gone kind of insane, I think. And so it just social media in general promotes that. It's kind of funny that he followed me because I was actually critical during certain times. I remember the first time Elon even replied to me, my Twitter kind of went crazy and I had articles written about it. It was just so insane. I don't think media is fully going to die. And the idea that everything is going to be replaced by social media or citizen journalists, I think is kind of absurd.
Don't succumb to the mob. Don't apologize. It's about honesty. You might have done nothing wrong, but even if you have, when you have such a disproportionate attack against you, the mob does not deserve your apology.
Who are you?
That's the first question. Well, my name is Katherine Brodsky, and I'm a writer, commentator, and book author as of late. So I just wrote a book that came out called No Apologies, How to Find Your Voice in the Age of Outrage.
I hear a lot of people saying that now the hate and the drama in Twitter is like 10 times more than before Elon got it. But I'm curious to see what's your personal experience of. Do you think this hate, it's more now? What is happening?
My sense that it is. I'm not going to put the blame entirely on Elon. I would say that the world is in general just very polarized. And it's very, people have gone kind of insane, I think. And so it just social media in general promotes that. It sounds like you agree.
Laughter doesn't mean that you agree.
Okay. Fair enough.
No, I agree. I agree.
I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with that statement, to be honest. It's just we see it. Like people have gotten kind of mad. It's incredibly divisive. Everyone is hyper focused on politics and, what side are you on? And everyone's focused on like, what's your stance on this or that? And people are like starting to be wired that way where they're like craving that all the time instead of like, look at education. Yeah.
I am sorry. No, I have a rule not to interrupt too much, I guess. So go ahead.
I don't mind interruptions. Yeah. No. I now don't know what I was going to say. So go ahead.
So now I don't know what I was going to say. I'm joking.
Oh, we're stuck.
No, we're going to try to be a good podcasters. So my question is social media just now in the rise? And because it becomes mainstream to our lives, maybe that's why we see it now. It's been always like that. Maybe it's not just. I'm curious.
Well, for me, it seems like social media, because I think the pandemic had a big impact on this because people were so isolated. I think they got onto social media in a heavier way. I mean, it was always a bit addictive. And I think there's that. The pandemic is part of it. And I think the fact that we don't have real communities as much anymore either. So it's this combination of things. And I think people are really lonely. So the way that they were finding community and are still finding communities through social media, they're not really finding it in real life enough. One sort of testament to that also. So I did a little poll, but I had maybe, I think like 2,000 or 4,000 responses. One of those numbers. And the poll was about, whether people have dated anybody else. So one answer was, basically if you were in a relationship, married, or have gone on a date in the past 6 months. And then the second was like, has gone on a date in the past year. And then the last one was haven't been on a date in 2 years or up. And it was pretty shocking, although I had a sense that would be the result. 46% of people haven't gone on a date in over 2 years. That's a big indication of what's going on, right? And I hear from people all the time. I get so many DMs where like people are just lonely and people are just not meeting other people in real life and they've sort of given up. So it's quite a sad thing. And I think that's part of what's going on, because it's okay. Like if you're on social media a bit and you're engaging and you're reading the feed, that's one thing. But if you make your whole life that, and you're not seeing people in real life and not having, a lot of people, I notice a lot of people consider their, friends their people on social media to be their friends, and they've never met them. And look, I kind of understand that, but at the same time, like my friendships, like my real friendships, we've been through things together. We've experienced things together. It's different. You don't really know somebody, I think, until you've had that experience.
It's shocking what you're saying. By the way, I'm 23. I'm so young. So yes. I have a lot of friends that they are kids, like 17, 16, 14. So I have siblings that they're 15. So I'm kind of embedded in this new culture of the internet. And it's crazy to me that they even have boyfriends online and they never met them. And they're just playing on place. It's like, it doesn't even make sense for me that I'm 23 and I see that for them at 15. But another question that I have on what you said, was it always like that? If you did this poll 20 years ago, before like heavy social media,
I don't think so.
Maybe people were going to respond the same.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't done the poll, but I don't think it's the same, because it does seem, from my conversations that I've had, it seems to be a more recent phenomenon. And, again, I think like we've had social media for a number of years now, right? It's not new. We've had it for a long time. And I've seen it sort of evolve from like, people were first really excited to meet strangers on the internet. It was like, I know I was excited about that. And then later on, like Facebook came along, and then it's like suddenly it's just network for people that you already know. And so most people on Facebook don't really add people unless they've met them, and they're like casual connections, but it's a way of keeping in touch. I know young people don't use Facebook anymore at all, or almost at all. And now we've sort of gone to, I think, a place where people are forming communities, and these communities can become quite toxic, again, because it's kind of a dehumanizing thing to an extent. And you can find positive things too. So I don't want to be all completely negative, but I do think people are more, at least certain people are far more invested. Some people stay away from social media, or they'll just watch YouTube, which YouTube is like a very different thing, because YouTube is more about, content being put out. Yeah. I like YouTube. I watch a lot of content on YouTube. But it's different. It's like, okay, an opportunity for long form content like this. I love that you have hearts flying around. I have no idea how you just did that, but it's a different beast, because you don't have people might form some sort of a community with a creator that they like. So they'll like comment regularly on their posts, and maybe the creator does too. And maybe there is some sense of connection, but it doesn't replace like social life. And I think social media, when it comes to things like, TikTok or X or Instagram, there is a level of replacing social life. Like I've seen some people say where they would never give up their Instagram account. Like, it's just they don't know how to live without it. And that's a sad state.
Do you think social media are hurting kids? If you had a kid now, 13, 14-year-old kid, you will moderate his social media spending time?
Yeah, I probably would. So I met a couple on a train once, and they were telling me how they made a deal with their daughter that she can't use social media. They gave her like a dumb phone until a certain age. And then I think it was maybe age 16, and then she gets to choose. And so once she turned 16, she started, she got on social media, and she was all excited. And then she realized she really didn't like it. So she voluntarily gave up, because she found that it was wasting her time. It was kind of making her sadder, because she's lived in a world without it. And I've noticed, I mean, it does. I don't think it contributes to, I think there's an addictive nature to it that's really dangerous. Like if you're just using it casually and you're able to control your use of it, that's completely fine. But I think we just in general have this like reliance on devices and being constantly stimulated, and it's rewiring our brains. So, when I was a kid, I was never bored. And when I was bored, my mind would it wasn't boring, right? My mind would wander. So I'd do something like I'd read, I'd write, I wrote like whole things. I'd create little businesses. Like I was very active. And I was dreaming in my head, and I was thinking of things. And I think it made me, I don't know if I was happier, because it's hard to go through teenage years in general, but I was certainly, my mind was better, was much healthier. And now I think I'm always overstimulated. And the fact that I can't go a second without having some white noise, listening to a YouTube video or something like that, or, Space on X or Googling something, it's just too much. And then you go away and say you put your phone away. I've gone through physical withdrawal, like physically felt it. And then once you're done, it's like, oh, I feel good. I'll never go back to this. I don't need this so much in my life. And then you start the process over. So I wouldn't ban my children, I think, entirely from social media, but I would definitely figure out a way to moderate the use. But of course, kids will find ways to get in anyways, because I was one of those sneaky ones. So I don't know if it's like completely doable. Like when you're not allowed, you might be even more wanting to do it. But I don't think so I think if the question is this good for kids? I don't think that it is, especially in the quantity that they are getting. And there's a lot of studies on this as well. And certainly, I don't know that much about it, but I know in terms of like physical, body image and things like that, it's been, a problem. And there's a lot of cyberbullying, though, I don't know, in my opinion, better to be cyberbullied than it is to be bullied in person. But, neither is great.
For me, I have such a negative feeling about social media. Like I'm a YouTuber, I have a lot of followers on Instagram and all this stuff. And it's like, it's the most unrelaxing experience ever. It's like, also it's hurting me mentally, because I'm painting a picture of a life that is not real. For example, I get so many messages every day from strangers. And it's like, I think I'm the most important person in the world, because, I received 100 messages today from people. They want to talk to me. And I'm like, when I walk in real life, this is not the case, always. So, for me, it's like, I have a lot of discipline. I did a lot of things, and I cannot control this social media thing. So it's like, I deleted the Instagram. I deleted all this stuff from my phone, and I just sent to my team what I want to upload on social media, and they uploaded, because it was so negative experience that mentally I was like ill.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes there's positive things, like I'll get messages from people where they're really thoughtful, or maybe, because I encourage people to have better discourse. Sometimes they'll say, I used some of your techniques and I had a really good result. And now, the people that I thought hated me or I hate, we're now engaging. So there's like lots of like positive moments too, but also things like, people will send me really personal things sometimes. And at first I was trying to help everyone, because they needed help. And I realized like, there's no way I can't take all of that on. That's a lot. And then, when I had that Elon interview, my DMs I forgot to close them beforehand. So, my DMs I get the most insane, and I still am getting some weird messages. And then people who are like, over their fans, and they want you to like respond to them, and how dare you not respond to them, and stalkers. And so there's like a lot that you have to then deal with, and, death threats and things like that. But, I wouldn't take away social media, because I do think there is like a lot of value in the discourse, but there's definitely a lot of negatives. And I think where we need to be is more disciplined in how we use it, how frequently we use it. And it's hard, because you get that little dopamine hit, even the drama, like I don't like drama, but at the same time, there is that human curiosity. Oh, what's this person saying? So I don't participate, like I don't go and talk about other people, but, do I sometimes listen? Yeah, I do, because I'm a human being and I'm messed up, because that's just human nature. And so it definitely brings out definitely a lot of the worst in us. But I think there's ways where it can bring out the best. You meet interesting people and you connect. You learn new things. So if you curate better who you follow and who you engage with, you get a better experience. If you, follow just hateful people, then you're not going to have a great experience. And if you interact with everyone and you allow yourself to be super affected by what strangers on the internet say, that's also not going to be a very positive thing. And, I think I've always thought I was pretty good at dealing with hate, because I think about it in the sense of well, that's on them. That's not me, But at the same time, when you're getting so much of it on a daily basis, you start feeling, it's not that I take the comments personally. It's that I take personally the fact that so many people have it in them to look at a stranger who means well and say awful things. I hate that. And that makes me just sad about the world. It's hard sometimes not to get sad about the world because of how people behave. But then you get a few messages from people who are little rays of sunshine, and you feel a little bit better.
Still a lot to unpack in what you said. So many things you touched.
Maybe I should keep my answers more concise.
No, I love it. First of all, do you know my history with Elon?
No, I don't. What's your history? No,
okay.
Now I'm curious.
So, I'm a YouTuber, as you understand.
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm 23, he's a hero of mine that I admired and stuff. So I decided that I'm going to go outside his company, or I already did. And I stayed for 69 days every day outside. I was making videos. It got around 500 million views, the short videos. And I wanted just to give him a hug. And after 69 days of being outside SpaceX, it was at the time that the transition of Twitter, he agreed to meet me and give me a hug. And if you see on my Twitter, you're going to see a hug with me and Elon that he retweeted, and we have it got really crazy. So I have a small experience of when you are associated with Elon, your social media really takes off. So I'm curious, first of all, to understand how was your whole experience? How did the spaces happen? What happened? How did you, now as an interviewer, I'm curious to hear, how did you prepare for the interview? What do you think you did wrong? What do you think you did good in the interview? In the end, it got a bit crazy. His mother came and all this time. I want you to touch kind of through the whole experience.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to apologize to the listeners of that interview because the audio was awful. So that's one of the things that went bad. Part of that was because he was on a plane and he was connecting through Starlink and he had his mic on. And then later it was my fault because I had a whole mic issue with my phone. So the worst time for that to happen. But you're right about people kind of going a little crazy when you have that proximity. I remember the first time Elon even replied to me on something before he had followed me. My Twitter feed went crazy. I don't think you don't get the same Elon effect these days, so it doesn't really make that much difference anymore. But at the first one, I had articles written about it, and it was just so insane that that's what would happen just from a little response. It wasn't anything that significant either. But, we were sort of engaging a bit on the platform. And I was also it's kind of funny that he followed me because I was actually critical during certain times. So at first I was quite excited that he got Twitter, and I was pretty supportive, wanted to give him a chance. And then I started criticizing certain things because, the thing with the planes and the journalists being banned and things like that. So I was pretty open.
The planes, you mean about the doxing thing that happened?
Yeah, the doxing thing, which I'm okay with him, but he did platform journalists who didn't report on it or didn't dox him. So I was like, okay, it's very inconsistent. That has always been my issue. It's like, the whole point of Twitter 2.0 is like, let's have a Twitter that's more transparent and enforces the rules, equally to everyone in the same way. And yeah, having freer speech, I think, is important as well. That part he did deliver on. But, so I definitely had certain things where I praise, certain things that I'm critical. I'm not like this, I'm not a fanboy. But we ended up in, it's been like a while, like at least a year at this point that we've had like little back and forths. And I asked him for an interview at some point. I'm like, it'd be great to do this. And I didn't expect to really hear back, to be honest. But I did. And it took a while for this to actually happen. And I had one false start. And I never announced that it was Elon Musk. That was my special guest. I kept that a secret. So like nobody knew except for like one. I'm so glad I did that because I can't believe people were so angry at me after because I didn't bring them up. That I'm so glad I didn't tell people in advance. So it's a surprise.
And also one thing to add here, it's crazy when I was trying to arrange the hack with Elon and I was waiting in a room for 10 days in my hotel for 10 days. He was putting it off. Yes, come this night and all this stuff. So he's very busy. It's like crazy.
Yeah. I'm shocked that he's on Twitter as much as he is because he is a really busy person. And then he did my space for 3 hours, which I never expected.
Yes.
I didn't even know how long I would get for the interview, and I think that was like something like 80 minutes. I didn't even think that would happen. And I was trying to wrap it up because I wasn't sure, I didn't want to sort of annoy him by going on too long. But then he ended up staying and having a good time. But yeah, I prepared the questions that I wanted to ask. And I kind of thought of there's so much you can ask him. There's so many topics. I could definitely talk for hours to him. But that would... I tried to focus it on a few key things, and I wanted to ask some questions that are on a lot of people's minds that were maybe concerns, but still ask them in a friendly way, which is why I wanted to frame it as more of a conversation than just like an interview. In an interview, I'm way more concise. Like I don't tell people my perspective on things if I'm just interviewing someone. In this scenario, I did share some of my views, because I was hoping that would allow some engagement. What I've learned, though, he never really answers questions that directly. So if I was going to do it again, I would have prepped more questions, but also I think there's some questions where I could have been just more direct with and not given my own perspective on. Because I don't think that helped necessarily. Because in his head, it seems like he just heard the question more than the setup. That's my sort of feeling about it. But what people really enjoyed about it, it seems like they thought, was where he was really relaxed. And that was also part of the setup is like, okay, I want to make this person feel relaxed. And part of it is like, I wanted him to understand where I was coming from with the question. And just my way of thinking. And then he could say, look, I disagree with your way of thinking, and this is why. And that's what I was hoping for. So I think in that way it worked really well because it does seem like he was pretty relaxed. I put in a little bit of humor. I don't know if you remember, I did a little impression of an ChatGPT, which is my AI alter ego. Yeah. I should have done that one longer. I think I could have really put her on the map. It's been an impression of, my alter ego shows up every once in a while, but people have now started requesting her. So for your audience who doesn't know, it's my AI. She's a very snarky, offshoot competitor to Grok. And she is like an AI voice that comes out of me sometimes.
Okay, so you feel overall that, first of all, I want to comment on I think you did that. You achieved to make it not like this me question attack. It was more like, let's have fun, let's explore ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm curious what you think about the direction that the interview goes. So many people join, impersonator of his voice, his mother, your friends. Like, how do you feel about how the direction went?
Yeah. Well, one thing, because I didn't know if he would take audience questions. So that was, so I was like, oh, okay. And then it was so hard. Like the thing is so glitchy. So you can't even see people on the stage and you can't like take requests. Like, so there were apparently 600 requests, but you actually don't see them all. So it was like, okay, I just had to pick people that I knew, to some extent. But I think it was just such a diverse group of things going on. And there was like a lot of humor. I love humor. Like funny is money. One of my teachers used to say, I love humor. You can say a lot through humor, but also it's a good way to, just get somebody feeling like their most self. Cause it's that immediacy, right? Like the reason you laugh is something unexpected comes up, right? And makes you laugh. And it's the same thing with horror, which I don't like, but both of them do have that effect of making someone feel really present. So that's why I love it. And I love humor. And, so we had that. And, I did know that, so his impressionist, we still don't know if he just sounds like that. He says that he sounds like that. And I've spoken to him before. So I think he just sounds like that. But I knew that would be like a fun bit. So, and it was amusing for Elon. And then it was quite fun with his mom coming in, and definitely, and everyone seemed to really enjoy that part. And just the silliness. I mean, there was one person who asked Elon about, if a hot dog is a sandwich, I believe. Yeah, and I was like, really? That's what your question is going to be? We've been beating him up, but there's something amusing about that too. And I think we need to, like, I think it's a great way of interviewing someone too, to have like those fun moments and like be real. Like, you're still human beings, so you should have a conversation like human beings. Like, I did want to ask him certain tough questions, which I think I tried to do in a way that wasn't antagonistic. There's a few things that I probably would have liked to add to the mix and was thinking about, but ultimately didn't. But I think it's important to, like, I'm not trying to make him like me either. All I'm trying to do as an interviewer is get someone feeling comfortable and get them feeling a little bit excited about the conversation. That's what I always say. Like, I don't want, you don't want to be somebody so relaxed that they fall asleep. You want somebody to be a little bit excited to talk to you. And I'm not antagonistic, not because I don't have a spine, but because I don't think that's productive to a conversation. Do I have criticism? Yes, I do. But I'm also genuinely interested in knowing what somebody's thinking. And so I try to ask things in that way. Now, I've noticed some of I didn't read that many of the comments, but some of the negative comments were, I was trying to defend, media and it's dead. And Elon is basically talking to me like I'm a 5-year-old because, how many times can you repeat the same thing? And I'm like, okay, but I understand where they're coming from, but I was trying to get somewhere with it because I do think I don't agree with him on this. And, but I was trying to kind of see where we can arrive there. And I was trying to see what he would have to say about it.
What do you mean you're angry? I'm curious now because you didn't express exactly your opinion there. You didn't have the time to express.
No, yeah. So my view is essentially, I don't think media is fully going to die. And the idea that everything is going to be replaced by social media or citizen journalists, I think is kind of absurd. I think there's a room for both to exist, and it could be a really good, I really do like, what the potential of citizen journalism, but the mechanics of it, you have one thing that I mentioned in the interview was speed, right? He thinks that, you need that speed. You don't need to fact check things. You can kind of fact check it after through something like Community Notes. Maybe Grok will eventually have some kind of a application there. But I think one of the problems that we have is that we operate with speed over quality. And I think we need to verify. I mean, media, if anything, media is failing at times because they also have been valuing speed. So they don't do the intensive research that they need. They don't look for the right experts. There's a lot that the media needs to fix in how they approach things. And the fact that they often will, rewrite an article like that broke in one media outlet, and then there's like a broken telephone process where it appears everywhere but slightly changed. So there's a lot of issues, and I've always been a critic of mainstream media because as somebody who worked there, I saw the things that I thought were broken. But to dismantle it entirely, like that editorial process, instead of just improving on it, I think is a mistake. So to me, I think you need to be able to, where I think community journalism works well is that you can get somebody in a particular location that's a little bit harder to access for just a normal journalist. You can have people with expertise in different fields where, that they can sort of analyze a story immediately, but they have, whether it's a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, right? Like they can comment on it and provide kind of undistorted, and unfiltered information that's not suppressed in any way. And I think that's a good thing. But, I know X is going to have like a tab for for articles soon. Well, and I'm sure there's going to be a certain number of people who are going to use it because they just like writing. And some of them are going to be good at it naturally, and some of them are going to be awful at it. But the incentive, like, for example, as a journalist, like based on how much I'm being paid, I can afford to spend more time on a story. So if I'm being paid very little, I can't spend the time I want to on a story. But if I'm being paid, a substantial amount, that means I can, spend a lot more time and be more in depth. And right now, people are saying they're getting their information from social media or from X. Yeah, but that information is first appearing in mainstream media, which they hate so much. Like very little actually is original reporting on X. Some of that might change. More people might be doing that, especially if there is like a monetization aspect to it, but not that much, right? And right now it's not there. So I don't think mainstream media is dying. I think it's just going to change and reinvent itself. If it's going to, regain trust from people.
Interesting. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like maybe what I understood from Elon is not that he thinks 100% this. Let me differ. By the way, sometimes I don't know how to talk, so bear with me. Ha ha ha.
Same here.
So let's say I'm a YouTuber. I have like 10 people in my team. So maybe this is what he thinks the media will be in the future. It will be like groups of people that they monetize and they have instead of mainstream media that we follow. And that would be kind of our mainstream media. We have this group, these 50 people that we follow their stories and they're commenting about this. But I'm curious, do you think this will happen, or you think like mainstream media as we know them will exist and this is not?
Well, there's something in mainstream media, in the structure, that when it works properly, I think is good. So when you have a bigger organization in general, more people, you have more resources. And especially for something like international coverage, they tend to do better on international coverage, and they'll have people on the ground. Again, people can work in teams on stories. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be some people who will be able to do some of that coverage on their own. I think some of that coverage will happen. But what we're seeing right now is the prioritization of cheap content, kind of, things that incite people, things that are scandalous. It's easy to create, and it does really well. So there's such an incentive for it. This is also a problem in mainstream media to an extent, because once we switched over to the internet, what happened was, especially before they started doing paywalls, that you link, it takes you, a story that takes 30 minutes to produce can actually get more views than a story that has taken weeks or months to produce. So the only reason that some of these outlets still do invest in these stories that take a long time is because they want to maintain a reputation and the caliber of their publication, and they have subscriptions as well. But that incentive has, I think, driven a lot of people think that media, like bias, has been distractive to media, which it has. But I think an even bigger aspect is how the financial model is working. So when we get on social media, that becomes an even more significant issue. And when you're seeing people profiting just from really ridiculous content or repurposed content, and they're doing better often than the people who are trying to create original content, that doesn't give me a lot of hope. I think you will probably have both ecosystems, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having the citizen journalist side of things or more independent journalists, that's more choices. I just find that people have this point of view that, everything that the mainstream media says is a lie. Well, that's just factually not true. Yes, there's lies by omission. There is, bias in the content, but a lot of it is still factual, and it's not less factual necessarily than somebody with an agenda who is creating their own content on social media, for example. So I would like the audience to be a little bit more educated and be able to discern, the facts in every story, whether they're getting it from, citizen journalists or independent media or mainstream media. They should just be more media literate and critical thinkers and be able to look at different resources and sort of to understand what the real story might be. But I don't think, listen, I could end up being completely wrong. I just don't think media is going to go fully away and that it's just going to be replaced by social media without an enormous change in the approach, I suppose, at the very least. And the other thing is the gatekeeping, right? That people don't like. But, when I worked in journalism, I had editors who made me a better writer. So I had training by working with people who are experts. And they also challenged me when I was putting down things that weren't quite verifiable or were opinions, right? So you need better editors and better journalists. Yeah.
For us normal human beings that we never worked in mainstream media, can you describe us kind of how is the structure? How do you get a story out?
Yeah. So I never worked in a newsroom. So other people work in a newsroom where they work with different journalists and they're all have desks there and editors. But for me, when, so in that situation, they'd have editorial meetings where they decide which stories they're going to cover, and journalists may bring certain stories up, or they may bring stories up to just their editors, or the editors might decide, we should have this story covered. In my situation, because I've been pretty much a freelance journalist, so often it's me coming up with the story idea and pitching it to the editors and saying, this is what I want to cover. This is my angle. This is why it's relevant. And the editors will say yes or no. And sometimes they'll come to me and say, hey, we want to do a story on this. And are you available? So, and then I write the story. I might have a little bit of input from the editor, depending on the editor. They might say, make sure you cover this, this, and this. If I'm interviewing people, a lot of the stuff that I've done is interview based. So they might say, make sure you ask about this and this. And then I write the story, and then they just, they'll edit it usually, because I have a tendency to overwrite. So they might edit it for word count because it's too long. And then, small things and making sure that it's all factual. And there's, this has been disappearing in magazines, which is a problem, is fact checkers. So, I did a story recently, and they do have, fact checkers. So they had my whole transcript so they could make sure from the interview to make sure that, everything is accurate. And then on other stories, they might just verify that that I did speak to certain people, that the transcripts are accurate, but also if I'm using a fact of some sort, they will verify that it's correct. This has disappeared, unfortunately. There's very few publications that still have proper fact checkers, which I think are really important to maintaining good journalism and trust with the readership. But that's generally how it works for me.
Okay. You were describing your point of view of why you don't think mainstream media will die. And by the way, now I understand and I see your point because you had a lot more time to elaborate. When I watched the interview, I was like, I'm not 100% sure what she means, her points, why she means that. So I'm happy that I kind of understood exactly what you mean by that.
I appreciate that. And I think it's that's one of those things where you're like, well, I don't want to take too much time giving my opinion. So sometimes I think certain things are missing. I've noticed too, when I do interviews, people sometimes will come up with these, thoughts on me where or they think that I think certain things that I don't. And I think it's just something about missing information.
Were you stressed the time of the interview?
I was a little bit stressed because my phone was blowing up. I was quite stressed with the technical issues. And also Elon does long pauses. So sometimes it's hard to know when he's finished or not. So I think that was a little bit tricky. I think the audio I think it would have been more fun to do it in person because then you see the person's expression and it's easier. I don't get I go into interview mode, so I don't get nervous in a traditional way. So I can have a little anxiety over technical things, but in the moment, I'm kind of in the moment with things usually.
And in the end, usually when you are online, when you're hearing something, it's difficult to have this hanging out and vibing with people. But I think in the end, it was the vibe. It was so everyone felt that they were there laughing. There's so many people just talking about stuff. So I think it achieved this vibe, which is very rare to achieve online, this hanging out vibe, which was interesting. I was curious about your book. Tell me what you wanted to say.
I was just going to say that I think a lot of times when people do these spaces, especially with guests like that, they make them so formal. The way that they change their voice, they'll start kind of it's superficial. It's kind of fake. And so that's something I'm pretty allergic to fakeness. So, that was very cheesy. I
liked it. Drop the mic, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for laughing at my dad joke. I appreciate it.
It was good timing. Amazing joke.
Thank you. I'll be here all night. Well, no. No, but it was something that is for me, in general, in all the interviews that I do, I just try to have a rapport and break that, not be so formal and treat people like people. I have interviewed a lot of very famous people, and And maybe that's part of like why I don't feel like that stress on that and the need to speak in a different way.
So, okay, let's go one step forward or backwards or to the future. I don't know, but it's cancellation. So I got cancelled. But I did something that it was interesting. So I travel all the world. I travel countries for free. So I travel across the United States, hitchhiking, and all this stuff. But inside the video, what I do is like sneaked inside the train and lock myself in the toilet and like go to the next place.
You're crazy.
I did that in Japan.
Oh, okay.
I did that in Japan. One of the countries that I've been is I did this 5-6 times, and I did this in Japan. And the whole world was mad at me. And I wanted to talk about this with you because I heard something that it warmed my heart from you that a lot of times some people do something small, maybe a mistake, maybe something, and they get this huge backlash that is unreasonable with what they did and the intention that they had. Like the whole world, I believe, like mainstream media got the story, all this stuff. Stupid YouTuber is going to Japan and doing thief and all this stuff. And I was like, guys, the intention was just to show the kindness of people that they give me a lift and all this stuff and just do this just to package the video to get views. So I understand that it's now I'm not going to continue doing that. It's a mistake. Also, I'm 23 years old and I'm learning my boundaries, pushing everywhere. But it's like, that's why I wanted to really talk about with you about this. And I wanted to get your take kind of about this cancellation and what it happens to the people that get cancelled and the whole concept.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I love Japan and the Japanese culture. And don't you ever hurt them? No, I'm kidding. But I think the big thing, like, for example, what happened to you, and I don't know the full story, but I'm assuming you made a video, you did something a little off, culturally maybe insensitive, but the problem that we have with cancel culture is that people, no matter what they do, the punishment is the same, right? You didn't hurt somebody, you didn't cause physical pain to someone, and yet the punishment often is the same as if you had. And there is no real redemption or learning. Like you said, you're 23 years old. You're going to do some things that are not right. You still have to take, and you did take accountability because you said, I've learned from this and I'm not going to do it again, which is really, as a society, what we should want, right? You learn, you realize this wasn't quite right. I'm not going to do it again. So what is the point of further punishing someone when they've already learned? Because what's the point of punishing men in general? And I've started looking at this from the point of view of prison systems and just our normal, social media environment where, in prison, we have rules okay, if this person does this, they get this much time. If this person does that, if they have good behavior, they get out early. So there's all these rules that we thought of in the legal system for, and the reason for punishing is not it's for a deterrent in a healthy system. It's as a deterrent, so you don't do it again. So you need some kind of punishment and also rehabilitation, and you want to protect society from a person who's a danger to society, right? So you have these three things, and maybe it doesn't work perfectly all the time, but we have this. But in the social world, in the social media world, or the mob world, we don't have this, right? Everybody ends up getting punished the exact same way. Let's destroy the life. And the goal isn't generally to make that person behave better in society. It's to punish them. And that's it. And there is no redemption. So I think that to me is the problem that we have.
When you get canceled, kind of it gets bigger than you. The cancellation is way bigger. You cannot even control it. It's something above yourself way. So what's the best response to a cancellation? Mr. Expert.
Yeah, now I'm an expert in cancellation. It's crazy. So, yeah, in my case, there's a few things. One, so if you haven't predicted that this is going to happen, right, you can't set yourself up for the best way. But being strong in the face of it, I think, is the key. So, for example, so the reason my book is called No Apologies is because I don't think you should apologize to the mob. Now, if you have done something wrong and then yes, you take, you accept the things that you have done wrong and you can apologize for that. Just never apologize for the things that you don't think that you have done wrong. So staying strong, having, I think this is like a bullying culture, essentially, right? When you see people behaving a certain way, whether it's a pile-on, it's not just about, let's make somebody accountable. Let's right society's wrongs. People are just there's something about it that they're enjoying it. It's a mob. And when they behave in sort of atrocious ways, there's no reason to really take them seriously. And it's important to surround yourself with people who are honest with you and people who support you and know who you are and see you for who you are. And during those times, I think that's key. And then figuring out, one of the people in the book, she says, have a plan B. Well, again, if it happens suddenly, it's difficult to have a plan B. But if you're somebody who generally, makes YouTube videos that might be a little controversial, or having some way of protecting yourself in terms of, work, for example. In your case, it's a little different, right? Because you're self-employed essentially because you're making these videos and your audience is still probably going to watch them even if things like this happen, maybe even more because they're excited by the scandal. It's different with somebody who just has like a full-time job, a 9 to 5 somewhere. But, I think people should just in general strive to work with people that they know have respect for them, for their craft, for their skill and professionalism, and not care about these outside things. And then once it happens, know that people don't have a big attention span. Like they'll forget about it maximum 2 weeks. I think that's usually the amount of time. So if you can hold on for those 2 weeks, hold on for 2 weeks. If you, again, don't succumb to the mob, don't apologize, just stand your ground. Don't engage. I made that mistake in the beginning because I was like, I engage with everyone. And then you realize when people are just quite dishonest in how they come after you, they're not just like telling you, hey, you've done this thing wrong. Let's have a conversation. Instead, they're calling you names. There's no point in engaging with people like that. You're just feeding them. And I think those are the things that people generally do wrong when this happens to them because they're unprepared and they're just human. And then they don't know how to deal with it. And just surrounding yourself with common sense voices, like people that are just decent people who know you, will give you like that emotional balance as well. Because when you're hearing how awful you are from everywhere, that's not really a pleasant experience to go through. So those, I would say, are like the main things.
When I got canceled, your book was not out. So I searched online and there was all the info. I searched online on Google and YouTube, what to respond if you get canceled, how to respond in criticism. All the videos was shit. All the content, because the new thing is not something that people like knew all the time before the online hate. So I think what you are saying, all this stuff, they're very like cutting edge information about how to respond with this.
People don't know because nobody's like used to this. It's so unusual when it happens to you. Like when it happened to me, I didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, another thing that I did is I turned all my social media to private, right? Because at that point, people were trying to figure out my private information. So I needed to protect myself. And again, people forget in a couple of weeks. So if you can do it for a couple of weeks, that should suffice. I think people who have been successful through that have also, come out and made a strong statement usually. So not just like necessarily hide away, although that's an option too. But generally like just sticking to your guns and not dwelling on it, not continuing, to allow this to be part of the discourse. I think it's just something that you address, you state where, if you feel like you failed in a certain aspect of it, say so. And then just say, just be honest. And I think that's the key. Like the reason again that the title is No Apologies is because it's about honesty. Because if you have done something that you should apologize for, go ahead, apologize. I mean, people should take accountability, should self-reflect. But when you have such a disproportionate, you might have done nothing wrong. But even if you have, when you have such a disproportionate attack against you, that is not something you should not, the mob does not deserve your apology, right? Like you haven't done it to them. Why are they demanding an apology? So that's another part of it.
So you see this evolving and becoming more like a thing, the cancellation, but also recently I see a lot more YouTubers being okay kind of with, who cares? Everyone got cancelled anyways. So it's like...
That's the thing, if you cancel everyone, you're not gonna... what are you gonna do? So I think at a certain point, I'm seeing like a lot of people realizing how stupid it is, and you can't cancel everyone, essentially. So I feel like it's improving, but it's not done. And it will never be done to a certain extent, but that level of it, I think that hysterical level of it, people are going to stop taking it seriously, especially when you're canceling people for just ridiculous things, right? They're not like murdering puppies, right? Like it's just, it's people using maybe a few words they don't like, having an opinion they don't like. You have to weigh it out, Is this really destroying the world?
Sneaking in the train without...
Sneaking in the train. Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, I understand. The Japanese people have a very specific culture. I try to respect it. You're not even allowed to eat anything but ice cream on the street, right? According to the culture. And when one time I read, people like, you can have a red light and zero possibility of vehicles, but people still won't cross the road. It's very specific. But ultimately, by sneaking on a train, how much did it hurt people to the extent that you need to, like, how long do you need to hold the grudge, I guess? How much of somebody's life do you need to destroy for that?
So a teacher of mine forced me to have a conversation with you about one topic. Are you ready?
Okay, yes. Forced you. Okay.
Yes.
I'm excited about that.
He's actually there and he's telling me, no, I'm joking, I'm alone in the room.
My teacher is right here, so he's telling me.
I hear actually stuff. That's funny. So what he told me to discuss about with you is a lot of the times to become friends with someone, especially if you are a male, you kind of shit on the other person. You say, "Oh, you're a pussy, fuck you," and like you come closer with when you push each other. Where can we draw the line also, like on this topic? Can you understand what the concept?
I do understand what you mean, because I'm trying to find the word. There's a word for it, but it's like a little bit of taking the British would say taking the piss out of someone. So you're making fun of someone, but it's like poking fun. And I have people in my life like that, and it's like it's fun, but I think the line is like, are you are you doing it to hurt someone? Are you going too far into like, something personal? Or are you just like, is it coming out of a place of like love and affection? Because I remember I was working on I worked on a TV show a few years ago, Jack Ryan, and we had Navy SEALs. And at first they were so nice to me. They were so polite. But I knew where I kind of made it into the in-group was when they started making fun of me. Because I'm like, before that, they were just polite and respectful. But with each other, you could see that dynamic. So, but it wasn't designed to make me feel bad. It was just like, it's like it was just honest. And there wasn't meanness to it. And they still had each other's back. So I think that's where, I draw the line. It's like, is it coming from a place of affection? You're just calling each other on something that's true and not trying to hurt each other, just poking fun. I think that is a good way to sometimes get to know people. And, I definitely have been known to do that sometimes.
So it's the kind of good bullying in a way.
Well, it's not bullying, because the intention of bullying is to hurt you, right? The intention of bullying is to destroy you in some way, even to destroy your feeling of joy and well-being. Whereas poking fun at someone doesn't have the same intention. It's actually to lighten things up, to connect, to form some kind of a honest relationship and joke. So it's not the same thing to me at all.
So, but to this point, a lot of the times we as humans, we are not like glass. If we throw it, it breaks. We are anti-fragile. So we grow. Yeah. When we get bullied, we become a better person in a way. Like, so where I don't know, where do you draw the line on that as well? Because
yeah, I don't believe in bullying as a way. I think there are other ways to grow that don't involve bullying, because once somebody is bullied, it haunts them for life. Yes, you become less fragile, but there are other ways. I don't think that should be an intentional thing. It's good. Life is going to do things to you anyways that are going to hurt, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. I have been somebody who's been bullied as a growing up, right? Like in the real world.
Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, sure. I was bullied by kids, like physically beaten up, and other things happen that to this day, like it makes me feel like a little bit ashamed that happened to me. But at the same time, I had two choices, because you know how they say hurt people hurt, and I really hate that phrase. And while it's true, sometimes people can hurt others. I think somebody who's been hurt should understand better than other people how it can feel. So for me, I felt like I developed a stronger sense of empathy towards other people. So I would never intentionally bully someone. And it's something like, in fact, when I see somebody who's like being bullied, or somebody who's just alone and uncomfortable, because I know what it is to feel that way, I'll try to help them, and I'll come and talk to them or something like that. So I think it can also give you something positive. And I try to look at bad experiences that I've had in life as something that, has taught me things, right? I don't look at myself as a victim in any way just because certain bad things have happened. I see myself as having that experience and growing from it. But I don't think that experience is necessary for people to be decent human beings or to be resilient. I mean, people are going to say things to you by accident too, without the intention of bullying, right? People are going to say things that are hurtful and they don't even mean to be hurtful. So you have to learn how to take it and how to deal with it. But the idea of like bullying, as a positive, I personally don't like, and I hear that from a lot of people who are like, we needed to bully these kids who feel entitled. They needed to be bullied more. No, I don't think they needed to be bullied more, but they needed to be told the truth more. And I think that there's a difference. Bullying, you're trying to hurt somebody, take them down. If you're telling the truth to someone and you're saying, hey, you're wrong about this, or your behavior right now is not okay, that's also a way of checking their behavior without the intention of actually hurting them. It might hurt them anyways, but you're just being honest in that situation.
If we come one step back, that you said in the beginning, free speech should be allowed, but legal. So the same way, this bullying should not be illegal. It should be legal, but we're trying actively to not do it and teach people to not do it. That's kind of the approach here as well.
I would say so. I mean, you can't make bullying illegal. I mean, you can make actions like if somebody's physically hurting someone, that could be illegal. You can have rules in your, if you have a school, you can have rules of how people should behave, and they should go according to that. But even if you have these rules, it doesn't mean bullying won't happen in certain subtle ways. It's going to happen. But if you instill in people, like, have people understand what it feels like to be bullied, or, you essentially want to exemplify, you want to mirror, you want to model good behavior, right? And you want to also have people understand what can hurt someone. Like if I were to teach my child how to not bully someone, I would teach it from a perspective of having empathy for another person. And I would say, hey, how does it feel if I said this to you? How do you think this person is going to feel about it? And I think doing that, and it's just good parenting, to be honest. And I think people rely so much on schools to do the parenting, but really the parents have often abdicated their parenting. And one of the reasons why I feel like kids are so coddled, is because the parents they just fawn over them. They let the kids dictate everything, and they don't tell them when they're wrong or when they're right, and when they, need to correct their behavior a bit, or when they're entitled. The school's not going to tell your child that. It's the parents' job. And then the schools, of course, they have their own ways of, coddling, because, you can't say certain things, or, there's safe spaces and all of that. Obviously, that has had an impact as well.
Are you ready for the most fun question that I ask every guest?
No, but I'm excited. I'm not ready, but I'm excited. And scared. Now I'm scared.
I give you $1 trillion. How do you spend it to have maximum positive impact in this planet?
Ooh, okay. I actually have an answer for this question. So if you had $1 trillion, if I had $1 trillion, I would set up an organization where people can come to me with ideas on how they plan to make the world a better place. And I would fund their ideas.
Wow. Actually, I ask all the guests this question.
Yeah. But and what did they say?
So many things, but this is kind of the most logical, simple way to actually spend it. That's intense. So you are going to set up a Shark Tank for impacting the world.
Yeah. Basically, well, yeah. Exactly. Okay. I've always, the reason I didn't have to think that long about this particular question is because I've thought of this before, because I thought if I had a lot of money, that is what I would do. So, and I mean, if I had $1 trillion, the ideas don't have to make money. If I had less money than that, I was like, okay, but I want the ideas to also be eventually self-sustaining, so they can, fund themselves. But if I have $1 trillion, I don't have to have that requirement. I just ideas that improve the world, and I would just do a Shark Tank. Exactly that.
Well, I like this idea. I'm not going to say it's my favorite because it's a discrimination to the other guests.
Yeah,
but
you can't discriminate. You'll get canceled for that.
It's definitely a good one. Okay, how important money is for you?
I think it's important in the sense that money is freedom. So money gives you the ability to not do a job that you don't want to do. And it gives you the opportunity to fund ideas that you want to do. So, in that way, I value money. From a material perspective, I do like nice things, but at a certain point, they're not that interesting. once you have a nice house and, I love traveling. So travel is really important to me. That's like my big addiction. I always, even when I had little money, that's where I put my money. That and Broadway shows. I think money allows you to experience positive things that you want to experience. And when you don't have it, you don't have access to that. So I'm not going to say money is not important, because it is. But, to me, it's important for the freedom aspect, I would say.
Did you ever visit Cyprus?
No, I'd like to, but no,
that's
yet.
The country that I live. So
I was wondering. I was like, okay.
Feel free to come. I can show you around. And
thank you.
I hope I hope guys, everyone watching, that I could show you around Cyprus, but maybe send me email on this email that you have. Maybe we can arrange to make a tour all together with Katherine.
That would be fun, actually. There's a YouTube channel I follow where they sometimes meet up with their users, and that's
What's
pretty
their
fun,
name?
Actually.
What's the name?
I'm trying, like right now, of course, when I'm
Daily?
talking about it, I'm forgetting. Yeah, no, it's not. It's, what is it? It's been a while because I used to watch them all the time. But it's been a while. They're not showing up on my feed as much. Yes. I think, Yes Theory.
Yes Theory. Yes. That's true. Yeah. I love them. They are good, not good friends of mine, but we're friends because all the YouTubers are friends that we're learning.
That's the community. Yeah. Yes Theory is a good, so I like them. I like what they do. And they really did form kind of a community around them, which is a nice, healthy one. Like, see, it shows you that you can do it on social media. It's just there is too many toxic ones as well.
Also, they are taking it to be successful also off social media. Like, they're making real life meetups, they're making events, they're having merch, they are like having movies around the world to show to everyone. So I think one of the reasons that they are successful is because they're taking too often off social media for these bonds.
I think
to
so
form.
too.
And also,
I think that's a big part of it.
Another interesting thing is that they have a community thing, and they have like leaders of the community, and they have like in countries gangs of people that they are Yes Theory fan, and they meet and they go to do ice baths all together. So I think a big it's taking the community offline. I think the key is to formulate.
I think you're right. And oh my God, the ice bath would definitely bond you. I'm a big fan of Wim Hof, actually. So I'm like, I would do the ice bath because I've done the cold. I thought I couldn't do it. And then it's so interesting. Your body just starts to warm up. So I was not quite as cold a temperature as what they do usually, but it was one of those cold water experiences. And I was just at the swimming pool, and they had it. And I was looking, do I want to go in? Do I not? And then I got peer pressured by strangers. And I was like, I can't show them how much I'm suffering on the inside. So I go in and I do it. And at first, the first moments are awful. And then I found that my body just started warming up on its own. And I felt so comfortable in there. I stayed for half an hour on my first time. So I was like, oh, interesting. The mind.
Wim Hof in a woman form, ladies and gentlemen.
Not even close. Not even close. But I do love the guy. He's so cool. He would be a good guest, by the way. I forgot. I would like to interview him. Yeah.
Yes, we tried a lot of times, but it didn't happen yet, but we will keep trying.
Really? Okay. Keep trying. Yeah. I'm going to try too.
Yes. One of the things that I like, I read his book, and I watched a lot of his interviews, especially, I think it was one of the guys that I finished Navy SEAL school in my country, Cyprus. So one of the things that got me, because you go in the cold winter, in the sea and all this stuff, you spend hours and hours in the sea in the winter. One of the reasons that I finished it, it was because I was like, okay, Wim Hof is saying that this is healthy. They are doing it as a bad thing for us to quit. So it changed my perspective, and I was seeing, oh, what a healthy thing to do. Ice exposure, cold exposure for hours. So I really deeply love the guy. But also what I really love about Wim Hof is that he is so fun, is like content with himself, and it's just so goofy and stupid, and it's like laughing. He's loud sometimes. It's just himself. So it's very rare to see that in a person. It's so beautiful.
And he overcame so much, right? He had such a tragic portion of his life from which he managed to become somebody who's like an inspiration to others. Yeah. And the idea that the mind and having that will, I don't have that discipline that he does. But he does encourage me to push myself a little bit more and to realize that like people are capable of so much. We don't realize, even our brains, like I was always obsessed with the mind. So I was like, I would read books about it. And I know that like the mind is capable of so much more than it seems like magic, right? You see people, for example, lifting cars, like these massive cars to save lives sometimes in an urgent, like how does that happen? It shouldn't be possible. And yet it is. And everything we've ever seen in our lives, we actually have stored somewhere in our brain. We just can't access it. But sometimes we can, or some people can, right? Some people have these memories where they just remember everything. So it's just so fascinating. And it just tells us like we are so much more than we seem on the surface. And that's really encouraging because one day we might be able to tap into more and more and more of that. And I went through a period of time where I was very into like the nootropics and the, optimization. And I just find it like really fascinating.
What do you mean nootropics and optimization?
Okay, so nootropics are, I wasn't sure as a 23-year-old guy that you might know or not, but, well, it's more commonly known, but but nootropics are basically anything that is not like a prescription drug, essentially, although it can be anything that kind of enhances your abilities. So it could be like vitamins, it could be caffeine, which is a nootropic, like the most popular nootropic, all sorts of things. I mean, there's like very exotic ones as well. And some people have gotten to the point where they want like to make themselves like the most optimized people that they can be. So they'll eat at a certain time. They'll have all these supplements. They monitor, some people like monitor their vitals. I mean, it's a little over the top, but if some people are very into it, I've never gone to that extent. I also wasn't that successful with it, to be honest, but some people are, and I just find it pretty fascinating.
Okay. So what your heart truly desires?
Wow, that's quite a question. I don't know. Like, part of, I guess the answer that came into my head is like not to hurt. But, I mean, I just want to experience life and have new experiences. And I want to be surrounded by people that bring out the best in me and who I bring out the best in them, and not feel like alone.
Wow, not hurt.
Yeah.
Now I will ask a question, but you are not allowed to think about it. You need to say spontaneously the answer.
I will try.
If you had one wish, what do you wish?
Dog. Because that was spontaneous.
Wow, dog.
You told me not to think about it, and that was the first thing that popped into my head. So
Cute.
Dogs make me happy, so I guess that's why. I had a dog a long time ago who I loved to shreds, and then I was never able to get another one. And I'm too scared to get another one. But, yeah, because the loss was so hard. But I think a dog would make my life happier.
Okay. Wow. I have the next question is, what you think we didn't discuss in this conversation that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we didn't talk about the American tax system.
That was a bad. That was a bad joke.
Yeah, okay. That was the dad joke part of me. Yes. I make fun of people who tell dad jokes and then I go and do it myself. It's pretty bad. I don't know. I mean, it's a good question, but I don't know. Because I didn't know what to expect in this interview. I mean, there's so many things we could be talking about. Like I'm fascinated by AI, for example, but we've covered a lot of different things in this interview. So
you're fascinated by AI. It's been a long time. It's a recent thing. It's an obsession that you think about all the time.
It's something I think about a lot these days. I mean, I've always been into emerging technology. So anything that's like changing our lives, that's coming up, right? So I'm very interested in that. But before, probably was thinking more about virtual reality and augmented reality, something that augmented reality is really interesting to me, but it hasn't been applied very much because I see it as being really practical in our everyday world. I guess the Apple Vision is augmented reality. So it's getting there, but it's very expensive, and bulky. But virtual reality, not virtual, artificial intelligence.
Can I comment something on the augmented reality?
Yeah, of course.
As you understood, I'm a stupid YouTuber doing crazy challenges. So I did 30 days in a VR headset.
I saw that.
So
how was that?
I was just going to say to your point that I really believe the future is augmented reality. For example, I don't think we're going to use these stupid devices called phones, boxes in our pockets. Like we're going to have just glasses or lenses and we're going to see TVs. We're going to interact with our hands and stuff. I really see that as well.
We'll never be able to disconnect, I guess. But I think that's...
But you never disconnect anyways now with the phone.
No, it's true. Well, on that topic, would you install Neuralink into your brain?
Maybe not the first person, but definitely in the first 10,000.
So I was like, I'm never going to do it. And then I've changed my mind because I realized everybody's going to do it. And then I fall behind. And of course, the possibilities of that, like as human beings, we're going to be so, there's a few things that I've been thinking about. So one is with, something like Neuralink, you become a Superman, right? You can learn languages. You might not even need language. You can communicate with thought eventually. There's so much that you can do. You can learn skills. You download, it's kind of like the Matrix, right? You become an enhanced human and we become cyborgs. Some argue we already are because of our phones, but now it's the ultimate cyborg. And then on top of it, I was thinking about consciousness and can you download your brain into, a device one day? And maybe you'll be able to. Like, it depends on what we are. I think we don't have like a full understanding, but it's possible. And then that changes everything about humanity. Because now you can live forever if you want, and you can live in whichever world you want to live in. Like it's kind of insane where we might be heading with some of these things. And maybe it's like premature and maybe it won't be possible. I don't know for sure if it is, but there is some evidence to suggest it might be. And even just the Neuralink aspect, that's already changing humanity by such a degree. And then, we're living longer, so our lives are longer. That changes society. It changes marriages. It changes, financial side of things because you can't retire at the same age. And then we have the AI side, which is just incredibly, it's going to change a lot about the force in particular, but there's a lot of areas where it will just transform us, and we can't quite predict everything yet. So it changes what it is to be a human, and it redefines what it is to be a human, and we will have to focus on what it is that is special about us too. What's unique about a human being that's not machine.
What do you mean?
Well, if a machine can do certain things, it can mimic a human being. What is it about us that's different from a machine? Or is there? Some people think we are machines. We're just very sophisticated machines. Because, we are controlled by our genetics, and we're controlled by our hormones and all sorts of things, and and the data input that we got, right? Just like AI. So how are we different from AI? Right now, it's not very good compared to a human, but one day we'll be closer to a human. So are we still going to be distinct, or are we machines, And I feel like the human being is more than a machine, but some people think it's just exactly like a machine. So
are you afraid about all this stuff? Are you excited? What is the feeling that you get?
A little bit of both, because I think there is things to be fearful about. And I think what we do a terrible job of is that we'll have a technology come out. We don't think about the consequences, and we don't create check good guardrails. And I see this is happening with AI to some extent. And I think it's going to cause a lot of, hurt, right? People are going to lose their jobs at a certain point, and then maybe new jobs will appear. I also think it's exciting because who knows where it will take us. It might transform our society in positive ways too. Like, I think people will be more free to do things, like I said, that make us more human. So things that are maybe more creative, artisanal, things that are about communicating with each other. Like, I don't think AI is going to start making your videos for you. That comes from you. But AI can do, very mundane tasks that we might not enjoy doing. And it's going to be difficult because some people do these mundane tasks and they earn a living from it. But one day they will find themselves out of jobs and having to find something else to do. And I don't know if there's going to be enough things for humans to do. So we'll have to face these things and figure out what we do with that. But it is also exciting because it has the potential to do some really great things. And like even diagnosing medical conditions, like doctors don't have infinite memories, so they miss things all the time. But a good AI tool can diagnose somebody, and the doctor can work with the tool, and confirm the things that it's saying. But based on the amount of data that it can just process so quickly, that could be life-changing, right? That could actually save lives. So there's a lot of areas where I think it's going to be a positive influence, but also there's definitely going to be some negative things as well, and a lot of pain as that grows as an industry.
Me and you probably, because I assume you love as well your job. I think that's hard to imagine a life without having a job, an impact, a mission. But for most of the people, they will be so happy to leave their boring jobs that they hate their job, their boss, and they just want to spend time with their family. So that's it's interesting to imagine this kind of world. But I have to say something. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
I had a very, not stressful, kind of stressful and a long day. I worked very the whole time. And I was like, I was a bit tired before we started the interview. And with your energy, I'm sure you did to me and to all the listeners, uplifted us, made us excited again. So thank you for this. And I want to move to the last question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. So, bear with me. You are going to die after this podcast. So, but this, let's say you die after 100 years. We're going to come back to this conversation. We're going to see your last words. Maybe what is it to your family, to the world? 40 seconds, 30 seconds. Your last words, a message to the world.
Oh boy. Okay, so my funny answer is, because I always said that on my tombstone, I would write, oops. Because I feel like the way I'll die is like by choking or something. So, or by some accident, like some stupid thing. So that's the funny answer. The other answer, I feel like I'm putting it on my tombstone again, but she lived would be the phrase. Because I hope that I could live my life to the fullest, and I'm working on it. I think all of us have, things that hold us back from that, whether it's circumstances, finances, or our own fears. And I've had a lot of my own fears. And over time, I think I've gotten better at, doing things despite my fears. But it took little steps. Like, when I was a little girl, I was super shy, and every time I would phone somebody or raise my hand in school, I was shaking, I was terrified. But you do it anyway. So you have a muscle that you build. And so one thing is I hope that my own muscle continues to grow, and that I hope that I contribute something to other people that allows their muscle to grow as well, so they can be themselves and the best version of themselves. So if I can have people at the end of my life say to me, she made me feel like the best version of myself, that would be a gift. And for me personally, I'd like to be able to say that I've lived fully as much as I could and done the things that I wanted to do. How's that? Okay.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks so much for having me.